Cinematography is the art of motion picture photography. It involves techniques such as general framing and composition of a scene, the lighting or set of location, the choice of cameras, lenses, the camera movements, colour, and the list goes on. The importance of cinematography is that it sets the overall look and mood of film's visual narrative. Each visual element that appears on screen can enhance the story, so it's the cinematographer's responsibility to ensure that every element is perfect. What they do. A cinematographer supervises the camera and the lighting crew. They're the people responsible for creating the look of every shot in a film. The director and cinematographer work closely together, as the main job of a cinematographer is to ensure that their choices support the director's overall vision for the film. 1890s. The start of the film industry really began in the 1890s, where two brothers, Auguste and Louis Lumière, who were manufacturers of photography equipment, became best known for their cinematograph motion picture system and the short films they produced between 1895 and 1905, which places them among the earliest filmmakers. These films were short and establishing. But the Roundhay Garden scene, made in 1888 by Louis Le Prince, is believed to be the oldest surviving film in existence, which is just about 2 seconds long. Thomas Edison and William Dickinson were also experimenting and invented the kinetoscope, but the only flaw was that it was designed for films to be viewed by one individual at a time through a peephole window at the top of the device. 1900s. As cinemas started to open, the film industry is becoming a lot more popular. This decade revealed some developments in film. For example, The Great Chain Robbery in 1903 established realistic narrative, different angles, and the use of symmetry. It was really one of the first films to have such narrative and had a storyline to it. The genre of fantasy, or magic, is becoming popular too, as Trip to the Moon was made in 1902. It was the first fantasy film, also known as trick filming. This film had strange elements to it that hadn't been used before, like the person as the moon. This film was a starting point for more genres to be created. 1910s. Because of World War I, the film industry suffered losses by the closing of certain European territories, shortages, regulations, and disasters, and some films that were made during that decade even had context to the war in them. Feature films began to include more narratives, and dialogue scenes became progressively more popular as the way to add more narrative. But this decade also brought along new techniques. For instance, soft focus is used in French on the cricket, which is when the lens forms images that are blurred due to spherical anomaly. Point of view is used in Back to Nature and Story of the Glove, which shows what a character is looking at from their perspective. Insert shots are used in La Mala Planta, which is any shot that's sole purpose is to focus the viewer's attention on a specific detail within a scene. Lastly, flashbacks, which are used in The Man That Might Have Been, which are interrupted scenes which take the narrative back from the current point in the story to tell events that happened before. 1920s. The 1920s was a real turning point in the film industry, with the introduction of Technicolor, which is a motion picture process using dye transfer techniques to produce a colour print, tinting films, and the first ever synchronised feature film with dialogue, which was The Jazz Singer. It established plenty of opportunities for experimentation. Silent tinted films were incredibly popular in the 1920s, with films like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Tinting the films was the first step towards having colour films. There are 5 different colours for tinted films, such as amber tinting for daytime or vividly lit nightmares, blue tints for dawn or dimly lit nights, red tinting for scenes that involved fire, green tinting for mysterious settings, and brown or sepia, which is used for full-length films. 1930s to 1940s. The film industry during the Second World War was able to communicate with large audiences. It was a very powerful source of mass communication and could be used for propaganda purposes, which also took place within the film industry. It was the decade of the sound and colour revolutions and further development of film genres such as gangster films and social realism films. The list is huge. There was more variation of shots, which led to more narrative and plots. Technology, which was improving, for example, Oricon film cameras, which recorded the sound directly onto an optical or magnetic track on the same film the image was captured on. The Wizard of Oz, which was released in 1939, wasn't the first film made in colour, but it was one of the first to prove that colour could add fantasy and imagination, despite its release during the Great Depression. (1950s). During the 50s, colour was getting progressively more common, with more than 51% of films using it. Technology was advancing as the films were. There was more experimentation with genres, in particular, films towards the youth. Teenagers were being recognised to have a separate stage in life, meaning more films were made towards the youth, like Rebel Without a Cause and Blackboard Jungle. To conclude the video, cinematography has improved majorly since the film industry started back in the late 1800s. From variations in shots, composition, techniques, and the creation of colour in film, the industry has come a long way from where it all started.